This is in a very important week and around broadband surveys and the speed test. And we'll talk very briefly a little bit about the challenge process, which only has a few days left, and what you might do to work on that a little bit. But that window's rapidly closing. So, but there's plenty of things to do without thinking about the challenge process. So. Thanks for joining. Getting your community on board with a survey and getting responses is really important. You know, there's really three reasons that we do the survey. One is to gather that community input so that you, number one, build awareness of the community that this initiative is going on, but also then to gather their feedback, because that is real. They're the ones, folks out in the community that either enjoy the benefits of a great broadband connection, or they suffer from the lack of it or the lack of affordability. We hear their stories. When we say, tell us your broadband story, we've had, I think it was Peoria County had 40 pages, I think, of comments that where they were able to benefit from that, heard some great stories, found some great champions. Second is to use that information to convince your own policymakers about the importance of broadband, although the need for that is certainly lessened as the technology dependence of our society grows, and certainly doing things like this program online is just one example of that. Second is to convince broadband providers that there's a marketplace for the community. And so that's why we could say, let's do a random sample and collect a certain number of surveys, but getting as many surveys as possible is one way to demonstrate that there's a strong broadband marketplace in your community. And especially as we ask people for permission to use their names and addresses and contact information to help attract broadband providers. That's really an important part of the survey results. And then third is to show to the broadband funders that your community is very interested in broadband, that you've done the work necessary to document the demand and the current state of broadband in your community. And so that goes a long way. And especially the state of Illinois, I give them a lot of credit, the Office of Broadband, for incorporating community participation, community support into a 4 out of 100 points on the granting. And we've had other communities in this program. They had been in they didn't really have a community effort in support of their broadband provider, and they didn't get the funding because they were short 1 point. So the idea of having 4 extra points is a really powerful benefit to being in this program and especially doing the survey. So that's why we do the survey. I will tell you now that you think, oh, we've got till, and Nancy will tell the date on timing of when the surveys close and everything, but we don't like to budge on that survey deadline. So take it seriously, because we need the time to clean the data, look at it, do mapping as a result of the survey, create the reports. And we definitely want the survey information to be in your hands at least a few days before we really start the community planning process in week 14. So know that if you're thinking about saying, can we have an extension, that answer is going to be no. And so, and Nancy in the past has allowed communities to keep the survey open for past the deadline, and then maybe a month later do a second set of reports if you find that really necessary. But we also know that if you do a good job of promoting the survey, that you'll get 90% of your survey respondents in the first 2 weeks. And then after that, the survey response definitely goes down. Nancy's got a great menu of marketing options for getting the message out into the community, and she'll share those today, as well as the mechanics of how this whole thing happens. So Nancy, thank you so much for your continued support of this program, especially with the surveys. It's a tremendous lift. So we recognize that.
Thank you, Bill. Want to just verify everyone can see my proper slide here?
Yes.
Okay. Really happy to be shepherding another cohort of countywide broadband infrastructure surveys in Illinois. Illinois Extension is really lucky to have such dynamic partners in this process. You know, it's always, whether it be at the local level or the state level, unfortunately, we all say in our various organizations, you know, we question whether the capacity can really meet the demand. But with partnership and collaboration, whether it be at the state level or the local level, we realize that when we all work together, we can make this work. And that's why we're all doing this together. And so we're just very grateful because we take care of the survey process for you. And we try to engage locally as much as we can. And I think that varies across the different counties as to what extension looks like. But we also kind of a little bit do some of the, you know, the communications or Zoom around this and meeting with counties and talking about what their situation is with broadband. But we couldn't do it without our amazing partners, such as the Benton Institute and, of course, the Illinois Broadband Lab, which is really building up capacity nicely and becoming a really impressive structure that is driving broadband development throughout the state as well. So I'll move on with my social graces and go on to the meat of the matter. Today, we're going to talk about the survey process. It's a lot more than just getting people to answer questions and then, you know, looking at the results. It is an engagement process. It can be really seen as more of a social endeavor than you imagine. You are working to get some sort of understanding of the demand at a county level, pay more attention to rural, and give folks a chance to engage, give folks a chance to join your team. So you have your core team that you've been building so far through this cohort. We're on the second week, and that core team is going to serve to do some of the work around this planning process. But like I said, it takes a lot of work on many different parts of many different individuals and organizations. So you might find that then there's another like sort of outer ring of groups that join your team. You can call them team members, and it is not irregular for you to find that there will be a few other folks or organizations joining your team even and starting to attend with you on the weekly sessions. You might think of one or two more that, oh, we should really get them going in here, especially if you see that they're going to do a little bit more heavy lifting with the surveying around the county. Why not invite them in? And so it does spur a little bit better team building when you launch the survey, which is what hopefully we'll do right after this presentation and the work we do in our breakouts today. And I'll quickly go over what sort of networking and communications needs to be done around planning to distribute the survey instrument. What is the minimal amount of design that you'll need to contribute to? That's very minimal. We have a great tool that's been driven in between 50, I think just now over 50 counties. So it's really been fine-tuned quite a bit. However, in terms of design, I will let you see what's on that survey so you have an idea of what's being asked of folks and what kind of goes into the broadband infrastructure planning process. In terms of the survey, it is by no means the end-all be-all. You have to really complement gathering of secondary information, such as on the state and federal maps that are already existing and getting better and better through the challenge process, but also the primary data which you are collecting through the survey. A little bit about sampling, which is basically the way in which we gather information and what we can say about that, and sort of a blend of methods there. some more information about distribution, and information about coverage. So we're going to be calibrating our efforts throughout the next few weeks and looking at coverage of the survey responses on a map so that you can see where are the quiet areas of your county, and you can start to target and go into cluster sampling where you'll be really making sure that you're getting all who need to be included in the survey included. And then a little bit about the analysis. What kind of results are you going to see at the end of this? And then I'll give you an idea of timeline and some tools that you'll be able to use to be able to flow through your timeline. So within the sort of the networking or communications necessary when you're about to launch, really what we do before we even finish designing the survey is think of all of the stakeholders in your county who are going to be impacted by the results of your survey. This is called a stakeholder identification process, but really you need, in doing this, you start to be able to list out some groups or organizations that are going to help you channel out through a distribution network. And you're going to make sure that those are folks who can represent the geographic area and the population to be surveyed. People from organizations which may act on the results of the survey, those are our stakeholders. Groups that can contribute resources needed in conducting the survey. So even if you think of social service agencies, libraries, et cetera, a lot of counties decide that at the libraries, those are areas that paper copies can be available, or just an online, another place that people can go and look at filling out the survey online when they don't have that access at home. Media professionals who can disseminate information, that's going to be very important. Some counties have a very strong newspaper or local media still, and that's amazing. You can even think of those who are in a informal media experts, or maybe you want to call them something else, but they are like influencers, right? So, you know, media professionals per se is great, but you all know that there's folks out there that just do that social media thing, right? And they have lots of followers, and really, why not reach out to them and get them to promote the survey as well? And then social service and social organizations, not just in terms of lending resources to efforts, but think of the fact that there's volunteers there and folks there that really do care about community, care about the county, care about the future of the county and the youth, and really can help do maybe a little bit of canvassing or some of the data entry, right? Maybe you have a high schooler who wants to do some data entry, and then that gets on their resume that they did data entry because they took those paper surveys and filled them on into the online survey. Again, stakeholder identification and distribution partners, you're going to want, I gave you a couple ideas. If you have a housing authority in your county, please do include them. And health department, public library, school, pretty sure everyone's going to have that on their list. We see flyers go into backpacks that kids can take home. And on the flyers, just that nice short URL. One of the things you're going to be giving me today is what do you want the end of that short URL to look like? I've got one already. Don't mean to call anyone out, but it's a good thing. So Massac County, right? Connect Massac is at the end of their URL. So that's real catchy, and they've just got that all figured out already, and that's great. So you know, that's going to be easy to remember for folks, and they're going to see that on the flyer. And so if it goes home in like a school backpack, or it goes out in the utility bills or whatever, then folks see that and they can quickly key it in. Of course, you could do QR codes. There's a little bit of a downside to using QR codes, but there's also an upside. So we can talk about that in a moment as well. And so just to remind you, when you're listing out these different entities that are stakeholders, but also organizations or individuals that can help efforts to distribute the survey widely across the county, make a list of the organization name, a point of contact who could really be the person that you reach out to, who kind of represents that that entity, the contact information, and then who on your team is going to reach out. You're really going to want to divvy up efforts and say, okay, so-and-so is going to call the health department. So-and-so is going to talk to the library. And some of that's going to be real organic because you all have different connections and maybe you're closer to certain folks. So you'll know kind of how to divvy that up. But it's a good idea to make that list and have that figured out. And then it's just clear, because when we look around at our team and we say, we're going to get all this done, and we know because everyone's going to help. Well, you should probably assign specific tasks, because usually if you have one or two people, they know they have to, those are the ones to get it done. But when you have a large group, everyone assumes someone else is doing it. So be careful about that and make sure there are specific tasks going to specific folks and that it's clear who is doing what. And then now let's just kind of take a moment. I think I'm just going to stop here and give you an idea of what's on the survey. But really with this survey, you're going to want to give me some introductory text to put at the beginning of that online survey. And then I really want to know what kind of unique survey URL are you interested in? So it all starts the same. We host the surveys on our platform here at U of I. So it starts with illinois.edu, but then there's a nice little break and then your unique URL. So sometimes we have the county name and it says the actual word county in it. You know, it could say something like Champaign County Broadband or whatever. So think of like just a kind of a short couple words that could go at the end of that URL. And again, that's just for the purposes of people seeing those flyers and getting those flyers at home so that they are going to fill out the survey while connected to their home internet connection, to their fixed internet connection, if applicable. And that's one of the things that's going to be in your introductory language is please make sure that you're taking this from the location that you're really reporting on in this survey. If it's a business, that you're at the business. If it's the home, you're at the home, so that you are on the local fixed internet connection, because there is a speed test. And so that those are one or two sentences you will say. You will be taking a speed test. You need to take the survey when you're at home. And of course, this introductory language can get recycled into these other marketing materials. You're going to send out some personalized emails. You're going to do hook sentences on social media, a press release, etc. And getting that introductory language, or what a lot of counties are calling a cover letter, is really going to feed into all of the other assets, marketing assets that you're going to develop. And I guess lastly, before I drive this, I want to mention that a lot of folks have a logo, and usually it is a new logo. Because you're going to have so many folks involved, you could have all of their logos on. I do have one team that has many logos on the top of their survey, but I still didn't see a whole lot of traction with that survey. And I think really getting everybody under one logo and just saying, hey, whoever joins our team, this is the logo for the project, right? And so, you know, Massac County Broadband Project, or whatever you want to call it, or Project Connect Massac, or whatever you want to call it, something like that, and that there's a logo that goes with that. And I can show you a couple of examples of those logos that look real nice. And let's just move forward here. Gonna stop sharing my screen so that you can see. Let's share the test survey. This is a survey that you can actually test drive. And so we'll include that link so you can test drive it if you're that curious. And so you can see my browser, hopefully.
Yes,
No one's okay. I was going to say no news is good news. So just this is a placeholder for the introductory text. Your logo is going to be up here with Benton and Illinois Soy. There's also a U of I logo that appears as well on this. And then some suggestions of what that text could be. We're going to talk a little bit about what the end dates of the survey need to be. We want the counties to kind of stagger those end dates. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to analyze everyone's results at the same time, but we'll stagger those out. This is I want to kind of mention before I forget, this is a cooperative service. So this is not research on the part of U of I. So it is not like this data gets used for research purposes or other purposes besides your county planning efforts. So in saying that, I really do mean that this is your county's, this is a service to your county. This is your survey, and this is your survey data. Okay, so at the beginning, you're going to ask along these categories, what have you got? And I rarely see folks select other. We want to know, is it a home, a business, a farm, or a community/public building? We have some conditional questions that appear when they select, I believe, farm. There might be one for business now that's similar to farm, and there's one for community public building. And that question, there's one question for community public building. We just want to know what exactly is it? Is it a hospital or something else? There's a good set of farm questions that appear, of course. So I'm going to select these all for now. Just as you might guess, it does need to be multiple select because you have a business that could be at someone's home like this, or, someone that doesn't only just do maybe some simple operations, but maybe they really do run an ag business, etc. So, and of course, something like this as well. All right, so for now, let's get these selected. Now we want to know the location. We see most people do provide this. They understand it's important, and because we're talking about broadband infrastructure, we need to know like location and what responses are associated with what location. We do have a disclaimer about privacy here if a couple questions down. We ask for the email address. Here's our little disclaimer. They can let you know if they want to share the address in the email. We explain why we might need them to share that with us because we want to use it in conversations with whomever our private partner is going to be. We're going to end up partnering with an internet service provider. It's better if we have freedom to speak about these locations and what the demand is for our county. But at any rate, they can select to share the address or the email. And if they don't select it, then you omit that information. You can still provide some of the other aggregate information, but their address and email don't really appear to be used in any sort of lists. Again, this is when they select public building. What is the facility? Is it a hospital, school, library? We want to know. And then here's the ag question. We want to kind of understand, is it owner, operator? Is it, are you leasing it? Are you a tenant? We ask those questions. We think it's important to kind of know what the situation is on that property. And, because as you guess, there's some economic implications there. We want them to describe their current access. So this is our big access questions. And like a lot of other questions in the survey kind of bank on this question. They can say that they have like a phone and hotspot here, as well as fixed internet. If they have both, that's great. And they're going to indicate that. They're going to be able to talk about service level and quality. For those, they might just have fixed. That's probably real rare, but at a business or public building, that makes sense, right? And of course, you've got, unfortunately, a lot of folks in the situation where they might not have fixed, but they've got their cell phone, or they have a hotspot. And then we always see some folks that just don't have anything, and because they live in an area that unfortunately there's no infrastructure, not even for cell reception. So for now, I'm going to click all three of these, and you'll be able to see all of the questions that pop up for all of those. So here we want to know the number of different types of devices that are being used at that location. That just helps us understand demand a little bit. And so we see that, and I do have a set of results that I'm going to show you, so you see kind of what that looks like on the end side of it. Some more ag questions, though. This is for ag. So your fixed and non-cellular internet, as well as your cellular or hotspot internet, it's the same sort of satisfaction scale. Do you feel like your business functions or your precision ag functions or your family life are well supported by these two types of connections? Excellent to poor or not applicable? And then how well does your cellular service cover your entire farm? That just comes up when you select cell. We understand that there's farmers out there using their data plans for precision ag. And so voice and data, how's that working for you? And since you indicated that this was a farm, let's talk about precision ag tech. What do you currently use and what do you hope to use? So this is actually can make quite a strong case. You could say we have these farms that took the survey. If they had better connectivity, they would use it in this other advanced way, right? And here's the nice little list of different precision ag technologies, and they can let us know if they really are already or plan to use. And they can, of course, fill anything out that maybe we would have missed. And are you interested in hosting wireless equipment on your property? Next week, you're going to hear a great presentation from our ISU experts around vertical assets and how those can be leveraged in broadband infrastructure deployment. And so we want to know already if it's a farm, do they have an interest in hosting wireless internet equipment? We see anywhere from 60 to 80% of farmers indicate that they're willing to do that. But we do know that there's some areas of the state where there's more of a reticence. So I am, I guess, already sort of expecting there might be more. And then we have a question about who the primary internet provider is. My apologies. Let me go back, because let me go back this way. Apologies. When they select yes, it talks about how high, like what is the approximate height of the tallest structure on your property. And so they can give a height there, and that's just information that they can use in planning if they do end up going that route, and try to get folks organized together and sort of leaning in and contributing what they can to the process. And what's your primary internet provider? So anyone who indicated they have that fixed connection, we want to know this list. We have specific lists of internet service providers for each county. I've got those lists. And so this question, these choices will look different for every team here today. You'll have your own list here. And so you can select more than one. There's folks that actually get to. And so we give them a chance to say that. And then we ask how often their primary internet connection's not working and how often they have to resort to their cellular data plan or hotspot. And they can explain, and then of course give, I use Verizon or something, to explain what download speed and upload speed have you been promised by your provider. We understand some folks don't know that, some do, and so we give them a chance to let us know. And similarly, we want to understand, this is a very important question around how satisfied folks are for the affordability, speed, and reliability. So affordability being that they think what they're getting for what they're paying is appropriate or not, and how satisfied they are, how satisfied they are with the speed of their internet, and then the reliability. How often does it go out? Is it going out once per year or once per week or once per day? And you're gonna be able to give just how satisfied or not folks are. And we've got our speed tests here. Bill had mentioned this is the last week to do the BEAD challenge, but this speed test, I believe, will remain up. We'll keep our eye on it. You're launching your surveys after the BEAD challenge period is taking place. So, we might change this site, but at the very moment, we are not changing it. I will double check with Shubika, but I believe this is fine to keep this here. Otherwise, there's another site that we use that feeds into the state map. And so I'm going to show this to you. So as you see, the survey doesn't close, but it does open this up in a new tab. And we've got some language here that says, please press start and then return to the survey tab in your browser to report the results below. So hopefully folks are reading the instructions. We tried to keep the instructions short as possible so folks will read them. But then, you'll just start the speed test and you'll get the results. I'm going to do this. I'm here on campus, so you might be surprised it's not as high as you think it might be, but it's also spring break, so not for sure what this is going to look like. But again, it measures the download, it measures the upload, and it gives this number for latency. And so you'll go back and these numbers you'll put here, here, and here. So here's where I'd put that 10. Here's where I'd put the download. Here's where I'd put the upload. And we do see people being able to do this correctly. However, if you have feedback, if you're getting feedback from people, please let me know. Every once in a while, depending on where you are in the state or what county you're in, there might be like a word change in a question somewhere because you realize that folks might want to see the question this way. And then they're like, okay, I know what to do. And so, yeah, we have a vast state with, north and south kind of culture and different words being used across the state. That's for things. So sometimes, we switch this up a little bit. If you guys can give me that's your local expertise there, we'll tweak it a little bit and make sure folks understand what they're being asked to do. Same thing for cellular. This is more important for kind of the farmers, but this really just speaks to the fact that there's just no infrastructure anywhere. And while this doesn't really speak to broadband infrastructure, a lot of people are interested in talking about that cell service. Okay, so when I say that, I'm really speaking to our southern counties, especially, but I do know that even in central Illinois, we have this issue where you could just be driving along and all of a sudden you have no cell reception, right? And why that is not a big deal in places where there's no infrastructure, nobody living there, whatever. It can be a big deal if there are folks around there and there's no cell reception. So we have this opportunity to show poor connectivity in both cases. And then this is the question that appears when they say they don't have any access. And so some folks get this question. I don't see a lot of people that this question even appears for, but there's 1 or 2 or 3% of your county that might respond that actually has very little connectivity or no connectivity at all. They'll get this question and they'll explain why they don't have it. And these are sort of the main reasons or categories of reasons why people might not have access to the internet, whether it be through a fixed connection or phone. They don't have it. And so they can explain prices are too high, or there are no services, or it's not reliable. There's even some folks that say, I really don't want it. I really don't want a cell phone or connectivity to the internet. And so that's probably very rare because they wouldn't probably even be filling out the survey, but they, you could get them to fill out the survey. At any rate, so the maximum monthly price you'd be willing to pay is a great question to ask folks. How much are you willing to pay for great high-speed internet, which would be anything over 100 megabits per second service? And so they'll say that. So this is, this puts us out of the categories of being unserved or underserved, and how much are you willing to pay just to be in the clear, right, and have great connectivity? And then we want to know, this is a use question, so how you're using or hope to be using your internet connectivity. This is really asked for everyone, and they can talk about hoping to use it if they ever get access or better access, and explain if they don't have interest in certain things. But do you currently use or hope to use the internet to access government information, cloud-based services like storing your everything on the cloud, right? All your pictures and scans of important documents, and then anything for your business or your studies, right? Cloud-based services such as these file storage services, communications such as email, video calls, social media, education, whether it's doing online activities for your basic education if you have kids at home, or folks working on their GED, doing higher education, etc. Workforce training or online certifications. Are we using it for entertainment? This is also a quality of life thing. If folks want to have fun, and that's fine. So we have entertainment on there. Healthcare information and services. Are you hoping to use it to operate a home-based business? This one's a very popular question. You can really use that going forward and saying, boy, if we had better broadband infrastructure in our county, we'd have this many more businesses being in operation. So that's interesting. Do you use it for surveillance and security or other smart devices? Do you use it to remote work? Banking and financial management, and of course shopping, right? Accessing goods and services. And then we have an other category as well. This is a really important question. Do you feel like there's a sufficient amount of internet service provider choices at your location? So this speaks to competition. We do kind of see a little bit of a relationship between competition between ISPs and service levels. So good to know if folks feel like they even have a choice, or it's just one choice and why would I pay for that or something, so this helps us understand that. And then finally, this very popular question, it's open response. People can write tell their, explain their own story. Tell us your broadband story. Do you have a story where better broadband would have really made your situation, but instead it broke your situation? Did you get the call dropped during an online video call interview with a potential employer? Did you, were you trying to submit a paper and it wouldn't submit, or submit an application, or whatever? Those really bad moments that folks say, gosh, better broadband would have been nice at this moment. Or just a general discontentment. But there's great stories that come out of this, and you get those stories in your results as well. And it's usually helpful to see what those are, and you can take some that are very provocative and use them to talk about sort of the individual level situation with broadband in your county, which really does matter. The statistics that come from the secondary and primary data gathered, or the frequencies, those results, those are great to have in your narrative. But sometimes when you're talking about like such and such percent have this situation, that does serve to kind of provoke some emotion of those who are reading your grant narrative, for example. You say, wow, that's a big percentage of people who don't seem to have a choice on how they're getting access to the internet. But then having a few of those individual level stories that really drive home what it meant for somebody to have that access, or how it really kind of changed someone's life to have that access, or how it really didn't help at all to have that access and it really hurt a situation somewhere, that those are very important to have. I mean, we see in general, people do react to these individual level stories quite a bit. So hopefully you can see my full screen here. Let me know if you don't. Otherwise, we're at this slide very quickly. These are the counties in the cohort. I see that Boone and Vermilion are ones that are higher population, that also, having looked at some online information with the census, that you have a significant amount of Spanish speaking. So the survey is available to you in Spanish. It would look just like what you saw, but when you start the survey, there's a little drop down at the top of the screen where you could select Spanish instead of English, and it would all appear in Spanish. So I'm assuming Boone and Vermilion counties are interested in that. Boone has a larger, quite a bit larger population of Spanish speaking. Vermilion, I think, is 4 or 5%, but all probably concentrated near Danville area. And so that would be very important for Danville to get the Spanish version of the survey. And so when you launch, you're going to start out doing convenience sampling, unless you decide that you really want to do a random sample. This is something that we could get going for you in the sense of generating that if you have a list of addresses. And so some counties, especially those rural counties, you do have a list of households. With some entity in your county, you have a list of those households. And if you have the resources and you want to do a mailing to 374 households, excuse me, that's how many stamps you would buy. That actually ends up being quite a bit of money. But you, having done a random sample, will let you say that your results are statistically significant if your response rate is above 30%. And so, which basically means that from that random sample that you distribute out, that you would get about roughly 130, 140 responses at least. And then you could start to say that your results are statistically valid. Otherwise, if you don't want to do a random sample, and we see a lot of counties that are not really able to do a random sample for various reasons, we start out convenience sampling. That's when you, like we just were talking about, you kind of go through all those distribution networks that you can, those networks of stakeholders, get the word out, use a lot of partners to get the word out, have them posted on their website and their social media, whether it be an influencer or a media professional or an organization, that folks are posting that information and that it's convenient and available for people to take. And the messaging is saying why this survey is so important, and it's talking about be at home or be at your place of business when you take it, and then, you know, click here and then take the survey at this location. But then when we start looking at coverage, then we move into cluster sampling. And that's really, you know, in a couple weeks after launch, you'll see who has all answered the survey. You'll see some of your larger communities where there's a lot of responses. And then you might see some communities in your county that have no responses, and you know, okay, we've got to go into that town and make sure that folks are answering the survey. And so convenience and cluster sampling will start to really cover your county and show quite a good representation of community sentiment around broadband. If you are interested in that statistical validity and you can't do the random sample, then you can also look at adding to what you just saw in the survey, to adding demographic questions around age, race, ethnicity, gender. And I think that's it. There might be one more there, but that those questions are asked. And if people answer those, then those are compared with what the census says. And so if it's comparable to what the census says about your county population, then you can say that you have a statistically valid survey result, because you've got folks who responded that pretty much made up the same proportion of what your county represents in terms of age and whatnot. And so I do see that having been done, and it does work out. We do that quite a bit in extension. We do the demographic questions and we compare with the census and explain how statistically valid a survey response could be. And we also help with random sample. But with the broadband cohorts, it is also common to do just the convenience and cluster sampling. And I do know that when we generate those results, I work with Shabika Agarwal. I think she's on the call today. She is our mapping expert, and she maps those results online, and you start to see, on the map, she maps those results on your county, and you start to see trends. So it's not a coincidence when it's all poor speeds or all poor satisfaction rates in one part of the county and everyone's answered that same way, then that starts to really speak to the situation in your county. Okay, so distribution networks are representative of your population. So this doesn't necessarily, I'm not speaking of demographics anymore, but what I am speaking about is that you've really gone through and made sure that you've included everybody that truly represents a county. So you don't want to just, have it always be the same people that voice out and the same folks that are always involved. And that's hard, but that there's a portion of your county that really do struggle to have a voice or availability or access to things. And it's hard to get them involved, but to think about what is the organization or small business or family that influences that group of people. And so, just to even be very blunt about it, I am talking about the trailer park, right? You can't just not survey the trailer park, right? So, thinking about who influences those who really truly are a part of your county. And, that can be difficult sometimes, especially like maybe you don't have a housing authority, so you struggle to access populations that struggle. who would struggle to even see the survey, right? Now we do see that on social media, all walks of life do participate on social media. So you might find that you do have folks that are taking the survey because they accessed it on social media, but perhaps make sure, right? If it's just the Chamber of Commerce that puts it out on their social media and that's it, I don't know how many, low income families are tuned into the Chamber of Commerce, right? But so that's why I talk about who are some of the even type influencer type folks that are in your county that could help to get the word out and talk about how important it is to fill out the survey. And so you're going to want to think about email messaging if you're sending out emails amongst all your partners. And, those flyers that have a short URL, I just sort of list all of this here so that you've got it. I want you to use these slides as a tool for yourselves. And so you're going to use these slides and look at this list. This list gives you some ideas of how you want to distribute your survey. Interviews on local radio, RFD radio is really good. I don't know if all counties have access to that, but I think most do, 80 or so counties do. And that's a great way to get the word out, especially to farmers. And if you need the contact for the person to do the interview with, let me know. I've got his contact information. And don't forget events and expos. So there might be some stuff going on this spring that you might want to take advantage of, where you've got the survey available to people because they're all at one event. And so you take advantage of everyone being in one place and distribute some flyers there. And of course, places that people visit. So there's home, work, and play. So where do people live? Where do they shop groceries? Where do they go to church? Where do they, if there's a big employer in your county, that's definitely a stone you don't want to leave unturned. And then, of course, if there's like a place that a lot of people go to for leisure. This is just I'm giving you just some text that you can just take right off on please take this survey using your local internet connection, not your cellular connection or hotspot. You'll be asked which internet service provider you use. You'll be taking a speed test. This is why you'll be taking a speed test. So this is just some additional text that you can use when you're doing your messaging or when you're answering questions. If folks ask you questions and you're trying to kind of explain, this is some good like form response that you could use for those questions as well. Again, I know you're not supposed to put all this text on one slide, but this is just for you to pull off if you have to. I know some people use this in some of their cover letter text. They want to explain that there really are longstanding benefits of broadband in their county in regards to telehealth solutions to, we did a webinar last week on maternity care deserts. There are telehealth solutions to some of that. There's quality of life implications on broadband infrastructure. You get more folks with incomes because of remote work, more businesses doing e-commerce, lower unemployment rates, et cetera. And obviously the improved decision-making, planning, production, and coordination that go with agriculture. And so I try to give a little bit of this source information of, according to USDA, according to there's a community development article from this Richmond Fed organization, Richmond Federal. There's a lot of online data out there. Don't forget to look at the Benton Institute for Broadband and Society's website because they have great up-to-date research and information about the benefits of broadband and what broadband is doing for communities. So you can use all of that to talk about what the benefits of broadband could be for your county. And some people just don't think about it. They don't remember how it can impact public safety, how it can impact the businesses and tourism. It impacts tourism so much, and it actually attracts folks to move back to your communities. This is kind of an example of a flyer. I've just got it kind of built for you. You could kind of just fill in your specific information. And then this is a timeline that you could use, and you could put the dates next to it. So it's there for you. I could read it out for you, but it's there for you. And of course, I'll put the link to the slides in the chat coming up here. I want to be mindful of time. I want to give you all a taste of survey results. And then I've got a link here that you could access a spreadsheet to all of the survey results that you're going to get. But here's some survey results that you probably imagined when we were looking at the survey, but I'm just kind of spelling it out for you here. What percentage of businesses report no access to fixed internet? So these are things that you can walk away from having done the survey and be able to say. You can say, whatever percent of respondents to our survey reported hoping to use their internet connection to access government information. Well, how important is that? I mean, to think about the heightened participation in your local democracy, right? That's great. It wouldn't just be democracy, but it could also just be the civic engagement and those who are tuning into what's going on in terms of county board or other committees, and providing public input on things that folks need to hear about. So just that the internet helps us engage with local government, and that's always going to be really restorative for local government in a time where such information comes through our localities and it doesn't come from our localities. And so we want to be able to drive our own local change and local improvements all the time. Only a such and such percent of respondents reported that they felt there were a sufficient amount of internet service providers in their area. So on and on, this is just a little bit of a taste of what you could say. And of course, along with the respondents that reported they had no internet access, we had a percent of respondents that also reported access and speeds that represented being unserved and underserved as well, is what we report. So when you combine all of those together, you see a large percentage, usually a large percentage of your county that have no access or poor access. And so that's something you can expect to get from the survey. And this is, I think, the last slide. You'll get this little worksheet today. It kind of just condenses everything from this slide deck into this one worksheet so that you can kind of say, okay, what do we need to do? We need to provide the cover letter information or the intro text information. We need to make a list of stakeholders, and we need to make our distribution list or our distribution plan. Let's look at timeline. Those are some calendar implications. So you can kind of look at what's to come in the next 2 weeks and what are you going to be doing. You can mark your calendar for certain things like, oh, this is the list. This is the week that we're going to be reminding everyone to take the survey, right? Because we've already launched it, but then we're going to send out reminders, and we're going to, or we're going to this is the week that we're going to enter the paper copies in, right? That last week or something, etc. So that timeline's there. And information that you might need. There's some links to let you see the survey And obviously, you've got your expansion there. So if you are engaging with partners, you want to ask them to join your team. They are inclined to join your team, not just for the survey, but for in general. That should be beneficial to you. This is a way to get them involved. And some action items here that I'm going to need from you. So I think really walking away today, what I really like to get from you so that I can put the survey, your county survey, in your hands, is that intro language. And included in that intro language is a point of contact. So what is the email and phone number of, if somebody is taking the survey and they have questions? That's on the intro language as well. And then also, what is that short URL going to be? Because I'm going to come back and ask you guys what that short URL is going to be. And so that's the end of it. Hopefully you're not all so overwhelmed, but let's take some questions and see what else we want to work on today.
Nancy, this is Bill. I think I was looking at our calendar, and it looks like the survey closing date should be on or near May 17th, as our community planning starts June 3rd. So that's 2 weeks to start getting the reports out.
Okay.
So people can fill that in on their timeline. Do they have that worksheet in their hands, Nancy?
Let's get another
we gave
link
it
to that.
Okay.
Yep, I'll drop it.
Good. People have questions or comments about the survey?
Yeah, and I'm going to check that worksheet as well. Make sure the link to the team, the cohort registration is correct as well.
Okay.
Hopefully it is. I'm thinking it is. Do you know what I mean, Reed?
Is there a link to the meeting registrations, you mean?
Yeah. In that worksheet, there's a link to the meeting registrations, and hopefully it's our link.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I changed that, so it might not be.
I might have changed it, but I might have not sent it to you. I think I have it just for everything today, but not necessarily gave it to you.
Just ignore that link then.
I can change it right now and then
Okay.
just give an updated link.
Thank you. I
Thanks.
thought I'd mention that just in case.
Yeah,
it might be correct, but
so David asked, will we get the answers to the survey, and if so, when? And yeah, you'll definitely get the responses to the survey prior to, we start our community planning sessions June 3rd. Where I'll meet with each team. Reed and I will meet with each team once or twice. And so we want that data in your hands by June 3rd. And that's why we have that kind of hard close date of May 17th, so we can produce those reports.
right. And people often ask, hey, can I have the actual raw data? Maybe they have like a person in the county that that wants to use the data for something else, or they want to see the list of emails so that they can start communicating with people around the other project efforts. And I think this is another thing that really folks might not realize, but you do this program and you do this survey, but you're going to be doing above and beyond the countywide broadband infrastructure planning. You could come back and be using this for other things, and not just, you have a team built, you have all of the assets sort of that you developed for this process, and it could get used for other things. It could be used for other projects. And, when we talk about use as well, that's an ongoing conversation. It never ends in terms of how are you going to use your access to the internet? We talk about the digital skill divide and what folks need to learn in order to attain and attain and aspire to, their, to actualize, right? So that's like we're talking about a career aspiration for any individual, or we're talking about maybe how you'd like youth to have opportunities for their development, et cetera. And all of that can relate to digital skills. And you can look back at some of the survey stuff and say, we collected information about this. We can use this in a proposal. If we're doing a proposal for a digital skills program for a funder, not just state or federal, but there's lots of organizations that fund related types of activities that could be digital skills literacy, or even what would that be, like equipment, maybe you want to distribute equipment as an initiative. And so the survey could talk about, folks who don't have access to a laptop, that gets collected in the survey. So pretty interesting. You ever try to fill out a job application with your phone versus a laptop, that the laptop is superior. So, I think this survey can be used not just for infrastructure. We're going to use it for infrastructure now, but you should continue to think about using it for future proposals.
Good. Thanks, Nancy. I think we're going to get into the rooms here momentarily. And I just want to add something else to your thinking. Is that the week of June 3rd, or no, excuse me, the week of April 22nd through 26th, Reed and I will be coming to Illinois, me from Minnesota and Reed from Virginia, to visit in your communities. And so we like to spend, 3 hours or 4 hours in your community at some kind of event. And these really go from large and broadband summits to just meetings with your steering team, tours. Last time we toured a new ag focused campus in one of the communities and saw the learning that's going on there regarding technology and agriculture. So whatever you guys want to do in that time, it's up to you. But it's just a great opportunity for Reed and I to meet you, in person in your communities and better understand your situation. Hopefully, spread the message about the project and what's happening. A chance for some media. So that's the week of April 22nd through 26th. That follows Easter, and Reed and I will want to get going right away on Monday for that. I think right now we could either go north to south or south to north and have a plan. So if you have those folks in Boone or Lee counties or Massac in the south, if you have a strong preference for beginning of the week or end of the week of that week, let us know as soon as possible, because Reed will be calling you to kind of calendar that in so we can have a plan for that week. You don't need to know exactly what you want to do, but we're going to find some identified time slots that we can be in your community that week and get around to the 6 counties over the period. So as you all know, Illinois is a very tall state, and so we'll be so I've calculated some of the travel distances. Looks like a lot of opportunity to see a lot of Illinois. So just begin to think about that. And again, if you have critical things happening either at the front of that week or the end of the week, Reed is heading off to London at the end of the week. So he's got a hard stop. So with that plane ride. So that's kind of it. You have the worksheet. I think Nancy will be around from room to room to check in on you. And ask your questions early and often so we get them addressed early. A lot of people want to start messing around with a survey and say, oh, why did they ask it this way? We should ask it a different way. Know that we've done this survey in about 45 counties, and most attempts by communities to change the survey have ended in small disasters that end up really messing up the data. Because every part of the survey influences the other parts of the survey. And so we know this one works. We know there's plenty of good information that comes out of it. If you feel a need to ask a question, we can add a question or two. If you have specific things about your county that you want to ask that's somewhat unique, we can add those, but we try not to change anything that's in there now. So with that, if there are any questions, we'd entertain those, or we'd let you get to your rooms.
Thank you. I'll also want to let folks know I just put a link to the slides in the chat. Go ahead and grab those so that you have the worksheet as well as the slides, which I think will be useful to you as well.
And then you'll have. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. No, we're just gonna. Yep, go ahead.
Is it safe to assume that no one's information is going to be sold once they complete the, the survey? Like that's all kept in-house? Can we put a statement?
Yeah. So I've got, we could add a statement. This is not something I add off the bat, but I have had counties that were, a bit more sensitive about it, and they wanted to add something additional to that sort of sharing language, because what it says is we will not share your information.
Right.
But if you want to say something more specific, you can. I guess to your question, what I can say is the data here is secured on the U of I network, as well as on a box folder that is private to just my access. And so there's several authentication passes I have to go through to access that data. It's also stored online on our Qualtrics account, and the survey that you have isn't shared with anybody. So that could also go in there and export the data. And then, of course, like I said, our designation for doing this survey is as a cooperative service and not for research at the U of I. And so I didn't get an academic sort of designation for this data. It's just as a cooperative service. And so it's designated as not for human subject research.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
So this is your data, which you control.
It's yours.
And so the important thing is certainly not selling it, but there might be telecom providers you'd want to give some of this data to, including the people's names and addresses, the phone, the email that we talk about. So that is a way that, let's just say you've got a provider that's interested in moving in, a brand new provider comes to your community or to your county, and you can say, how can we help them be successful? Well, if you give them a list of people in the area they're looking at that says, hey, we want better broadband, and you give that to them, that really shortens their sales process, makes it less expensive for them to get new customers, which is your goal. So where your goals and the provider goals are aligned, and including the people who do the survey, people who are doing the survey, they want better broadband. So the sooner you can get it to them, the better off they are. But that's why we ask if it's okay. We pretty clearly say, can we share this information with the ISP, and they have to check a box that says yes. So we don't share any of that other individual data with anyone, or you can't, right? I mean, you even though you'll have that full data set, what you share will be really up to you. So
I just think in this day and age, people are concerned about their information being sold, and if they complete this survey, we want to assure them that they're not going to be bombarded with 10 other surveys or,
Yeah,
junk mail and all that.
Absolutely.
Come to them, so.
yeah. So yes. And so, yeah, the idea that they would all of a sudden get a bunch of junk mail from, Bob's credit service or something, you sure wouldn't want that, but it'd be great if all of a sudden an ISP called them up and said, well, if you'd like to sign up for service, we'd deliver that to you next week. People would see the real benefit of that, so. Okay, well, good. Let's open the rooms, Nancy, and we'll go from there. I have a family event that I have to go to, a funeral, so I'm going to be signing off here soon. But as always, Reed and I are available to help with any kind of questions or concerns on the survey. Nancy's a key point of contact, and she'll be available for you, and go from there.
Thank you.